Good day to you all. Once again, I welcome you back to my channel, YouTube channel, and we're looking at taxation still, even this hour. And we're going to be looking at tertiary education tax in Nigeria. Tertiary education tax in Nigeria. Please permit me to share my slide quickly. Okay, let me take it to the presentation mode. All right, so that's focus today, tertiary education tax in Nigeria. Let's look at the learning objectives. One is to understand the meaning and purpose of tertiary education tax in Nigeria, to trace the history of tertiary education tax in Nigeria, and then to understand the applicable rate of tertiary education tax, appreciate the legal framework underlying tertiary education tax, to know the composition and functions of board of trustees of tertiary education trust fund, and then to understand the imposition, assessment, collection of tertiary education tax, and also to appreciate the amendment of tertiary education trust fund by the Finance Act. So let's go and look at the meaning and the purpose. Now, tertiary education tax in Nigeria is a statutory tax charged on the accessible profit of companies operating in Nigeria with a view to funding tertiary education. So that's the purpose of tertiary education, to raise funds for the purpose of, attending to the financial needs of tertiary education in Nigeria. Tertiary education here refers to learning acquired after secondary school level, as includes certificates from polytechnics, colleges, colleges of education, and of course universities. And then the basic reason why we're talking about this is just for us to be informed about the purpose. The purpose is to achieve restoration, rehabilitation, consolidation, and development of tertiary education in Nigeria. Now, let's look at the different, the historical background, okay, the different degrees, and of course, arts that underlie the performance or the tax as it's been administered in Nigeria. It started with tertiary education tax decree in 1993, and then it was amended again by Tertiary Education Tax Fund Amendment Number Act Number 17, Law of Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004, which was further amended again by Tertiary Education Tax Fund Act Establishment and so on Act of 2011. So these are the different acts. Of course, they have been amended, subsequently by the different finance acts that came up 2019, 2020, 2023, 2020, 2023, and so on. Let's move on to look at that far, as it were. Section 3 of Tertiary Education Tax Fund Act 2011 established the Tertiary Education Trust Fund for the rehabilitation, restoration, and consolidation of tertiary education in Nigeria. And the fund is to be managed by the Board of Trustees established by Section 4 of the Act. So the whole idea is to raise funds for the purpose of, restoring, rehabilitating, and then consolidating tertiary education in Nigeria. So the Board of Trustees is being set up to manage the funds whenever it comes in. And of course, the FIRS, Federal Revenue Service, pays tertiary education tax collected into the fund as prescribed by the form, as prescribed and approved by the Board of Trustees. But before the disbursement, an amount of not exceeding 5% of the amount of money generated is being used for the purpose of administering the board, administering the fund, and maintenance of any property, and of course project monitoring, and to meet all the needs of the fund necessary for the administration and implementation of TEPTA 2011. Composition of the Board of Trustees. So they were talking about the board of trustees now. The board of trustees made up of the chairman, 6% representing the 6 geopolitical zone of the country, and a representative each from the Ministry of Education and Finance. A representative each from the universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. An executive secretary who shall be the secretary to the board of trustees. The membership of the board of trustees should reflect the 6th geopolitical structure of the federation. For anybody to be considered as the chairman, it must be recommended by the minister, who will now seek the approval of the president for such a person to eventually be appointed. Okay, let's look at the functions of the trustees. There are just about 12 different functions that the trustees, is meant to carry out. Number one is to monitor and ensure collection of education tax by the service and ensure transfer of same to the fund. So they monitor. The FIRS is the one collecting, but then the trustee is to ensure, the board of trustees to ensure that they have been adequately collected and of course remitted to the fund as much as possible. Then to manage and disperse the tax imposed by this act, liaise with the appropriate ministries and bodies or bodies responsible for the collection of safekeeping of the tax, receive requests and approve admissible projects after due consideration, ensure disbursement of funds to various public tertiary educational institutions in Nigeria to monitor and evaluate execution of the project. So there are several projects being undertaken by different universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And in most cases, they seek, for funding opportunities from TET fund, as it were. So once the money comes in, they apply, they make requests, and they go through the board of trustees. And the board of trustees is to manage and disburse the fund accordingly. That's the role of the board of the board. That's the role of the board. So let's look at the other functions. They invest funds in appropriate and safe security. So parameters are leftovers, they definitely will be appropriately invested to update the federal government on activities and progress through annual and audited report. Okay, annual and audited report. Review progress and suggest improvement within the provisions of this act. Do such other things as not necessary or incidental to the objects of the fund under this act and or as may be assigned by the federal government of Nigeria. So these are the different responsibilities and functions of the board of trustees. Okay, now when it comes to administering, and then disbursements of funds, it is essential for the board, or the fund now to ensure that all the physical infrastructure, learning, for teaching and learning, they should be well considered. Okay, so by the provisions of this act, the board of trustees shall administer the tax imposed by this act and disburse the amount in a fund to federal and state tertiary educational institutions, specifically for all purposes: the provision of maintenance of essential physical infrastructure, instructional materials, and equipment, research and publication, academic staff training and development, and any other need which, in the opinion of the board of trustees, is critical and essential for the improvement of quality and maintenance of standards in higher educational institutions. So these are, when it comes to management, these are things that have to be, considered. Basically, it's just to ensure that tertiary education is being run, as appropriate in Nigeria. And of course, we talk about universities, talk about polytechnics and colleges of education belonging to the federal and the state. Private universities are not part of this particular arrangement. All right. So we've spoken about the board of trustees before and how they administer, but of course, considerations must also be given to funding tertiary education, number one. The different educational institutions, number one, and then of course to ensure that equality is guaranteed, equality is ensured, in the disbursement of amendment of the tax. Equality among the 6 geopolitical zones of the federation, and not only that, equality among the states of the federation in the case of regular intervention. So the distribution of the funds shall be in the ratio of 2 to 1 to 1. Okay, 2 to 1 to 1. That's to be shared between universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. The Board of Trustees has the power to give due consideration to the peculiarities of each geopolitical zone in the disbursement and management of the tax imposed by this act. Okay, so these are in order for them to manage other considerations being given, because everything must be distributed and given to different universities and polytechnics and colleges of education, judiciously. Okay, judiciously. Now let's look at the assessment and collection of tertiary education tax. How is this tax being assessed and collected? The Federal Revenue Service is responsible it's no longer going to be Federal Revenue Service, after January 1st, 2026. And for now, it's FIRS. It's responsible for the assessment and collection of TET from companies. TET now means tertiary education tax. Assessment is done alongside the assessment of corporate organizations for the company's income tax or federal profit tax for an accounting period of the company. The tax imposed by this act shall be due and payable within 30 days after the service has been served. Okay, notice of assessment will be given to the company, and of course the respective sections have been put there. TETFA 2011 section 2 subsection 2 as amended by Finance Act 2021. The service made for the purpose of the assessment and collection of tax imposed by this are devised any such forms as it may deem necessary. So the FRS is responsible for the assessment and collection of TET from companies, and of course companies are meant to file the returns for their TET as they do for corporate companies income tax. Okay, as they do for companies income tax. The rates, let's look at the rates. The rates of tertiary education tax. Okay, over the years, the rates have been changing. The rates have been changing. It used to be 2% up to December 2020, 2%. But then thereafter, when Finance Act came, it changed to Finance Act 2021 came, it changed to 2.5%. And then with effect from that started with effect from January 2022. Okay, the rate was increased to 2.5. That's what's in that point of the accessible profit of the companies incorporated in Nigeria, excluding companies, small companies. Before now, all the companies are meant to be, paying for. They are meant to be paying for tertiary education tax. But then, as soon as the Finance Act 2021 was brought into the limelight, promulgated, what happened thereafter? Enacted into law now, using the right language. Okay, the rate changed from 2% to 2.5, and the new rate took effect from September 1, 2023. September 1, 2023, and the rate since then has been 3%. The sale profit of companies is specified by the Companies Income Tax Act or Petroleum Profit Tax Act. Now, you must know that when we talk about small company, where a small company is an entity with a turnover of 25 million. Small company is an entity with an annual turnover of 25 million. So it means that as soon as you hit the threshold of 25 million naira, then the company is no longer a small company. That's what it means. Okay, it's no longer a small company. And of course, small companies are exempted from paying tertiary education tax with the commencement or with the coming of Finance Act 2021. All right. Now, it must be stated here that accessible profit that we're referring to here basically refers to adjusted profit. Now, once you have your net profit before tax, you adjust your profit, okay, by adding all the disallowables. By adding back the disallowable expenses, and of course, taking away from it all the disallowable incomes. Okay, that's what is being stressed here. Accessible profit is arrived at as specified by the relevant tax legislations. That is by adding the disallowable expenses to the accounting profit and deducting disallowable profit. That is before making adjustment for capital allowance and balancing charge or loss reliefs. So before coming to your everything that has to do with capital allowances, then you calculate. That's why you arrive at your adjusted profit or accessible profit. Now let's look at one or two examples here. Let's look at one or two examples here. Third rate is 2.5 under SITA shall be computed as follows. So all you have to know is the specific year that you're relating, with, and then once you know that, then you are now going to apply the applicable rate for that particular year. So you have to apply the rate, due rate that is applicable to that particular year. ABC Nigeria Limited has a profit of 100 million in 2022 year of assessment. Test shall be computed as follows. It's simple. 2.5% of 100 million will give you 2.5 million. And that's what the company ABC Nigeria here is ABC Nigeria Limited, is meant to pay. Okay, that's the amount it's meant to pay. Now, for the purpose of Petroleum Profit Tax Act, the rate of 2.5 is charged, on accessible profit before charging the tax. So that means that the way and manner of calculating or computing petroleum, rather computing tax is different from that of companies. Okay, so what do you do here? Tax rate divided by tax rate divided by 1. That's tax rate. That is a 2.5 divided by the tax rate plus the 100%, and then multiply by the amount. So let's look at this example. All right, ABC, A and P. Okay, ABC, E and P Nigeria Limited has accessible profit before tax charge is $100 million. Tax is computed as follows. Tax rate divided by 102, that's 100%, 100 plus 102 times accessible profit. So you have 2.5 divided by 102 multiplied by $100 million. And of course, at the end of the year, you arrive at $2,439,024.39. That's what you earn or you get at the end of the day. So the accessible profit after tax is 97,560,975.61. All right. So that's the way to compute tertiary education tax. Now let's go and look at a particular example again. Okay, a particular example is Biotech Nigeria Limited has commenced business on 10th of January 2010 and makes up its account to 31st December each year. The following information is extracted from the company's returns for the year ended 31 December 2019. Extra from statement of profit or loss. Turnover 20,500,000. Net profit 10,950,000 naira. Additional information. Net profit was determined after charging the following: depreciation 1,150,500 naira, general provision for bad debt 90,000 naira, and the capital allowance as agreed with FIRS. Okay, the agreement has been made, so it's been given to you as an individual to compute. To use. So you have 845,200. So required, compute the company's income tax, and tertiary education tax for the relevant year of assessment. The company says should be plural. Okay, that's talking about a question being given to us for us to solve. Now begin to look at this question even right now. What comes to your mind? Okay, what comes to your mind even before solving it? All right, turnover of 20.5 million, net profit of 10.950. Okay, and then of course we have depreciation. These are other information given to us. Okay, general provision for bad debt is 90,000. So how much will come in as company's income tax, and then how much will also come in as tertiary education tax from Biotech Nigeria Limited? That's the question for you and I to solve. I believe that you've gone through it. I have been able to probably observe one particular thing or one element that will help you in solving a problem, like this. Now let's go forward and see the suggested solution. This is the suggested solution. Just take a look at it. Biotech Nigeria Limited, which must always be written. Computation of companies' income tax and tertiary education tax for 2020 year of assessment. Okay, this is very, very important. You must know the year of assessment. Okay, you must know the year of assessment. Either it is given or inferred, whether it is given or deduced. Okay, once you know the accounting year, then you should be able to know the period, the year of assessment. Otherwise, if you don't know the year of assessment, then you are giving a wrong computation that will not be, compromised. All right. So let's look at the solution. Net profit as per statement of profit or loss, 10,950,000 given to us. Given to us in the question here. Okay. Given to us in the question here. All right. So we're working with 10,950,000. All right. Let's go back. Depreciation, that's adding back, okay, expenses that are disallowable. Depreciation is not an allowable expense. General provision, not specific. If it was specific, yes, it will be allowed. But then because it is general, it will not be allowed. So you add the two together, we arrive at 1,240,500 naira. By the time you add the two together, you have 12,190,500 naira. Less taxable income, none. None. Less taxable income, none. The question has not been or does not speak to that. Okay. So now this is where the trickiest part of the whole thing. Non taxable income, we have said that, but you also have to realize that this company is a small company. It's a small company. Why is it a small company? This is a small company because the turnover for that year, was less than the amount, 25 million, which is the threshold. Okay, 20 million, which less than the threshold of 25 million. So what does that mean? This company is not to be subjected to company's income tax. It's not also to be subjected to tertiary education tax because it is a small company. So you must look out for the turnover. What is the turnover? There is no reference to turnover here, but of course, in the question, they put the turnover there for you to know whether you have to continue to surcharge or, impose a tax of 2.5 or as the case may be on the relevant profit of the company. I believe that you've been able to gain one or two understanding here. Company's income tax now is nil, and then tertiary education tax payable is also what? It's also nil. Why? Because it is a small company. It is a small company. So if it is more than 25, then you know what to do. Then all of these ones will come into play. Begin to charge, the company will have to pay company's income tax at the same time tertiary income tax. I believe again that you have learned and you have actually been able to understand, everything about tertiary education, the way it's being applied in Nigeria. Thank you very much for being part of this class. Please, if you're here to subscribe to my channel, why don't you just go ahead right now, hit that button, subscribe, and of course, share this particular video, and as much as possible, make comments where necessary. If there are questions, put your questions there, and then they'll be attended to in due course. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the class, for watching this video. God bless you. Have a great day.